that nobody can refuse it. I said a little bit of rhythm and a little of soul, and a reason for the mic control. Come on and keep your mind on your music.
All right, so right now we're looking at Jonathan and Kyler, and we're going to talk about a little bit of downwind boat handling. So right there, Jonathan did a pretty good job of floating the jib or the kite out in front of the boat as they went in, but they were a little slow hitting the rail there. I think that the turn needs to be a little slower, and there needs to be more focus on getting to the rail. Here are Charlie and Duncan. And one thing that you notice is that the kite really collapses really early going into the jibe. I think it's super, super important for the crews to keep that kite full the whole way through the jibe, particularly when it's windy, because it keeps the apparent wind up and prevents the boat from loading up a lot. Here are Adele and Katie. And I think at the beginning of the clinic, one of the things that they were having trouble with is easing the kite into the jibe. They tended to have the kite in like that the whole way through, and then it would get stuck to the jib and take a long time to pull across. Good job sailing it, or saving it. And so when the kite doesn't get eased, it really has a hard time falling through that triangle. Here's one more. So the big thing here is the heel going into the jibe. It's really, really important to go in with that little bit of windward heel and keep that heel consistent all the way through the jibe. And here's Duncan and Charlie and I believe Dane and Newt and Christopher and Kai. And that was a beautiful jibe right there. The major things to look for there on the kite are the kite gets eased going into the jibe, and then Kai gives a really nice big pull on the old sheet before they get to their new jibe, and that's super, super important. You can see that Charlie did it there, but didn't quite do as much ease on the old sheet, and so the kite gets a little bit more stuck to the jib. It's all about balancing the ease of the kite with the pull on the old sheet, so that the kite falls right through the triangle between the forestay, the luff of the kite, and the spinnaker pole. You can see here on all of the good jibes, they go in with a little bit of windward heel. So on that one right there by Charlie and Duncan, they went in with leeward heel and really had trouble pivoting the boat around. That one was better. The boat was more flat, but even a little bit more windward heel would probably be good. Alright, so here are Christopher and Kai. Luffing that kite. So good windward heel there, maybe a little bit too much. The problem there was that the kite got eased too much and there wasn't enough of a pull on the whole sheet in order to prevent the kite from pulling over on itself. So it's it's really important that the kite doesn't get floated too far out in front of the boat, otherwise it collapses on itself like that. Let's see if they have a better one this time. So nice little float on the kite. Definitely not as much float on the kite that time. I think that they could have used a little bit more, and they could have been a little bit more aggressive in their angle. Alright, here's Christopher and Christopher and Kai, and the thing to notice there is the footwork. I think that in general the footwork's pretty good. The one thing that I would say is that when Kai steps out to the rail, he ends up crossing his legs because he takes the back foot and puts it in front of the front foot. So it's really important when you step out to the wire, I think, to try to turn backwards. So your back foot should go back onto the rail behind you. Here they are again. And so here there's more of a shuffle in the middle of the boat. So I think that Kai can work on just making sure that that footing is really consistent. Here's Tucker and Jack doing some tacks. And here they're practicing what we call a Polish tack. So they heel leeward a little bit first going into the tack. And I think that it's fast in some conditions. That was a bad one. Tucker needed to flatten harder. But in general, I think that Tucker does a really good job of handling the boat. He really pulls on the wire and pulls on the shroud and keeps the boat loaded up for a long time. And I think that most of the crews need to work on really pulling the boat around with their arms and with their weight. There's the leeward heel. Nice little flatten into it, and then a flatten out of it. Sailing with a nice little bit of leeward heel. I like that a lot. Tucker could probably be farther forward since Jack is up on the rail. Whoop. Alright, so these guys are kind of going in heeled a little bit to windward, which I don't really like in this light to side force condition. Crews in general here need to be a little farther forward. Pretty nice set there. Here, Dane and Mute. They stay nice and flat until they get past head to wind. Newt's priority there needs to be on flattening the boat, though. He's too worried about hooking in, and he doesn't really flatten the boat soon enough. Again, they keep the boat nice and loaded up, nice and flat until they get head to wind. But again, Newt needs to have more of a priority to flatten the boat. Nice windward heel going into the jibe. That was a pretty good one. Good priority on flattening the boat. That was an awesome jibe right there. That looked really good. The one thing I would say is that Dane needs to make sure that he is a little bit smoother crossing the boat, doesn't hit the rail really hard. All the skippers had a tendency to really fall on the rail, and we want to just be loading the boat up very gradually, really smooth. Keep in can see it jostles the camera whenever someone sits down on the rail. Little shuffle there by Newt on the footwork, and again hitting the rail hard when Dane sat down. So there, Dane's steering an awful lot, and I'd like to see him use the main sheet a little bit more. Alright, so the last clip is Jack and I tacking, and if you watch the footwork here, I always lead in with my front foot, my back foot follows, and the first step is all the way across the boat, and then the next step is with my new back foot out onto the rail. And as soon as I hit the rail, the priority is getting the boat flat before I hook in, and then as soon as the boat's flat, stepping forwards to get my weight in the right fore and aft position.